Hi everybody, Brody from Brody's Garage here. Today is January 23rd, 2024. This is episode 62. Hey everybody, Happy New Year to you. Hope things are going well for you. I figured it was about time that I gave you another update. Where we last left off, I painted the Nova here in the garage. As you can see, it's cleaned up now. I took all my plastic and stuff down. But I did the buffing and cutting on this car. My paint job, I had put 4 coats of House of Color Clear, so I wanted to try to make sure that I put plenty of material on there to color sand it down and buff it out. As of yet, I have not burned through anywhere on the edges or anything like that, so yay to me. I'm going to go over a couple of my setbacks and flaws and things that I learned in the process. I'm going to flip the camera around and show you the results. Okay, so there's the car. Currently, I just took the hood off today. The fenders are in the backyard resting on the couch underneath the canopy. And I took all that stuff up because I'm now starting the process of putting things back on in the engine bay. Just today, I put my turbo manifolds, my series of adapters, you can see down there, the turbos, and these are all just sort of snugged up right now. They're not in their permanent positions. Prepping the intake manifold now. I'm going to put that on. Had to clean off some old residue there on the old gaskets. And by the way, when you leave masking tape on for over a year, it's a real bitch to get off. So I had to use a heat gun and a razor blade to scrape all that stuff off. That's a fresh piece there. I will continue with that stuff tomorrow. But getting back to the paint, you can take a look here. I'm overall pretty darn happy with it. I will talk about some flaws, but got a pretty nice smooth finish. Basically, my plan of attack was after the paint kind of cured, I started with a razor blade by scraping off all of the runs. And let me tell you, there was a shit ton of runs all over this thing. I had a giant curtain of runs right here. I had one up here, which, by the way, this is one of my flaws I will point out. This was one of the first things that I scraped, and I gotta say I probably should have waited a little bit longer. The paint was maybe a little bit too soft, and in the process of scraping, that run just picked up and peeled off, and it left a little gouge underneath the clear coat, like pretty much all the way down to the base. So I had to spend some time trying to dot in some base, color sand it, put some clear on it and color sand it and buff it out. You can't really tell from more than a few feet away, but when you get up close, you can see that there is a spot. Where is it? Right there. You see that little spot right there? That's one of a few things that I'm going to have to live with. I just decided I'm not going to repaint this whole roof and try to blend it down there and try to fix that little dot. Screw it. It is what it is. You can see looking down the sides of the car, pretty mirror-like finish, pretty straight, clean. I still got pretty crisp edges, and the color looks amazing, both in the shade and in the light. You will see there are still some sand scratches that I have to buff out right there, and I'm going to have to go back and re-hit a lot of areas like that. You don't see them when you're looking at from many angles, and different lights will completely change what you see. So you really got to play with this thing in different lights, get different angles, look at the reflections of the light, and then you start seeing things pop up like those little swirl marks and scratches there. My process after I got the runs, for the most part, scraped out, which, by the way, my technique for doing that was I took a fresh, brand new razor blade. I put a piece of masking tape on both sides, on this side and on that side, leaving only the middle center part of the blade exposed. And basically, that gives you a little layer of protection on the sides from gouging it with the corners here. And it also kind of raises the blade off the surface, the thickness of the masking tape. So basically, you're going along the surface and scraping with just that little piece in the center. And for the most part, I was about 90% successful with that technique, and I got the runs leveled out pretty good. From there, I used either 400 or 600 grit paper to finish leveling them out. And then for the rest of the car, it was mostly a 600 grit wet, followed by 1200, and then followed by 2000, and then I started my buffing. There was one exception to that rule. I decided kind of late in the game to do my roof with a DA sander. I have some 800 grit wet or dry hook it Velcro backed DA paper, and I squirted some water on there, and I went over the DA went over the roof of the DA, 800 grit, followed by the 12 and 2000. Yeah, I think the DA worked out great. I probably could have done it on the trunk and maybe even on the sides too, but this was all done by hand. The compounds I used were the 3M Perfect It 36060. This is the cutting compound with a wool pad. There's my Makita buffer down there, and it's a, I don't know, 7 or 8 inch wool pad down there. After I did my initial cut and got it to a shine, then I went over it with a foam pad, like that red one right there, and this 06094 black swirl remover polish. There is a third and final step. You can go further than this. I decided I didn't really feel like I needed to do that, so I just used these 2 products. Yeah, there's my different papers, 600 grit, and this is from Linear Blocking Tools, these finer grits. I think if I had to do it all over again, I would use 3M products for everything. I would just go 3M all the way. I've tried Duragold and several different brands of sandpaper throughout this process. If I was going to start over from scratch, I would go 100% 3M products all the way. As far as the paint itself, I love the color. I really dig this color. I think maybe I would follow the advice of some people after the fact, and I would maybe do PPG next time. You can get pretty much the same color in PPG. I just didn't feel like repurchasing more paint after I already bought this stuff. I already had it on the shelf, and I spent probably $4,000 or $5,000 just in materials alone. And I'm happy with the results. The clear has got a great gloss to it. It looks deep. I'm super happy with it. I'll give you a little walk around of the car right now. And yeah, there you go. So that's the result of about a week worth of cutting and buffing. And you'll also notice that I started putting a lot of shiny things back on the car. I put the rear bumper back on. I put my gas filler cap on, my wheel opening trim, my door handles, which are actually polished aluminum from Eddie Motorsports. There's a chrome rectangular GM mirror. I think those were on Camaros and Chevelles. I just prefer those over the round ones on these cars. It's kind of a square body, so I figured a square mirror. I want to talk about metal polishing. This was the RideTech gas cap, which was available in clear anodized or black anodized aluminum. I sanded that down with 320, followed by 600, 1200, and 2000 grit wet or dry paper. And then I took it over here to my little Harbor Freight $100 buffing wheel, which I got to say is really handy. I kind of chinsed out and just clamped it to the table for now. A word of advice, before you start polishing with your brand new thing, take a screwdriver or a rake tool and spin that thing and rough up the edges, because they come very stiff when you first get them. So those need to be cut and softened up. I use the brown triple E compound on this wheel for the first cut, and then I followed it up with the finer white compound on the other wheel. And after some experimenting, I finally got some nice results polishing rough aluminum. That's what it looks like now. I'm also going to clean up my wheels. There was some overspray on those. Yeah, all the chrome stuff before it gets put back on gets a polish. Now I'd like to talk about a couple things that I missed. This piece of stainless steel trim here goes right in here up along the A-pillar, and then it joins up with the other piece of trim that's going to go there on the roof rail. The problem is if you paint this off the car, or I should say paint the car with this trim off of it, and then you go to try to put this back on, what happens is when that is lined up there, it sticks out about a 1/4 inch or more outside of the A-pillar, and now you've got that unpainted surface along the front there. So what you're supposed to do, I learned now, is put this on the car before you paint, put your seam sealer all the way down the channel, and then paint in there. I guess mask off the outer part of the stainless and paint that front surface in there. Obviously, I didn't do that. So what I'm going to do to make up for it is I'm going to prep and prime this face right here. I'm going to mask off the polished surface, and I'm going to prime and paint that in there, and then put my adhesive sealant. There's a sealant strip that goes here, and that gets screwed up into the A-pillar like that, and then at least there'll be some orange paint following that down there. There will be maybe a little gap there, I'm not sure. Or maybe I'll go ahead and seal it into the car first and try to paint it on the car and try to blend that little gap right there. We'll see. But at any rate, I got to put color on the front surface of this. And similarly, there's a piece of trim right here, this little C-pillar trim that goes right back in there. Same exact idea. If you look at the back here, that needs to be blended down there, and you'll see the back edge of that trim. So once again, you got to paint this. So that's two mistakes that I made. Another mistake that I made, and I could have sworn, because I remember specifically using a block across the back of the taillight panel right there. But for some reason, maybe I missed it, or maybe because I had some people helping me at the end, it got sanded off in the wrong direction. But this right here, where the quarter panel comes back, and then there's this little cross section here, is at an angle. You can see it's kind of kicked in like this. And despite me swearing up and down that I straightened this out, that I had this dead straight, because I remember putting a block across it and sanding down it, you can see that this corner is sticking out further than this corner. So when you tighten this up, it's pinching the gasket right there. And if I tighten it up any further, it's going to completely squash that almost up to the paint, which we don't want to do. It's not terribly noticeable. Like I say, when you come back here, you don't really see it right away. But when you get up closer, you can see that the gasket is squashed tight right there, and it's thicker on this side. And I've got lock nuts on the back of this, and I tighten them up just enough to where it pulled it up kind of flush without squashing it. So that's another thing I'm probably just going to have to live with, because I'm not going to repaint this car. I'm not going to take this off and try to straighten that out now and blend in paint and deal with all that. Kind of the same thing on this side, only not as bad. It's definitely better on this side, but again, not perfect. I did put my trunk weather stripping in. And incidentally, I read a lot of reviews about different weather stripping manufacturers, and unanimously people kept saying steel rubber makes the best product. So even though I already purchased a whole bunch of weather stripping from Metro and Soft Seal, and I've got it all in the brand new packaging, I decided to go with the whole kit from Steel. I saw them at the NAMM show. I saw them at the, what's the other convention? SEMA show for cars. Spoke with their rep. They actually gave me a 10% discount, and I bought a whole new kit of steel rubber, so I'm going to have to find a way to sell off my other products. I got to say, yeah, the steel stuff fits pretty well. This came with an adhesive backing on it, so you don't have to worry about like squirting adhesive glue in there. You just peel it and stick it as you go. And I think it went okay. And it probably needs to settle some, but I need to adjust my trunk latch now, but I think I'm not too worried about that. That'll close and it'll line up. I gotta do my door weather strip. I paused here because I'm going to end up repainting the gray in there. As you can see, some things got overspray, they got scuffed up. I'm gonna shoot all that again with the dash, let that dry, and then I'll start putting on my trim pieces here, my window fuzzies, and the chrome trim or stainless that goes around the window. Oh yeah, as I mentioned before, I'm also going to paint these grills the same charcoal gray in there, so that'll get sanded and masked off. Okay, so I think that's about the end of my day here. Obviously, there's a lot of work to be done here. So once I get the engine bay kind of wrapped up, hood and stuff, fenders go back on, I've still got to finish all my exhaust. I've got to put all the turbo downpipes and exhaust system on it. I've got to put all my electrical wiring, battery, cabling all back in. Finish the package tray, get the rear window glass and trim in, side glass and trim. Oh yeah, power windows, which I'm going to point out that there's a guy on YouTube that owns the company Redline Stands. I actually bought my rotisserie from them. And the only reason I bought my rotisserie from them is because I was browsing the internet in the early days of this project, looking for 67 Nova, and he has a 67 Nova that he was working on, and he's still working on his. He's doing an amazing job. His name is Ian. Go check out Redline Stands on YouTube and follow his progress as well. Ian and I have been chatting a lot, sharing advice back and forth, and he's got a great couple of YouTube videos showing a complete breakdown of how he did his glass, his power windows, fitment and all that stuff, how it goes together. He also went ahead and did flush mount glass on his front and rear, which is a whole ton of work. I wanted to do it, but I kind of knew going into it, it was going to be just an insane amount of work. So I backed off on that, and I'm cool with the chrome trim look. Honestly, I'm digging kind of the chrome with the orange here. I think it's a nice combo. But anyway, Ian has a great channel and a lot of great advice. So go check that out. In the meantime, I'm just going to keep working as I can here, getting my weather strip in, glass, trim, eventually interior. I'm going to have a custom carpet kit made for this because of the floor tunnel is modified. So a lot of work to be done. Going to get it running, and my goal, fingers crossed, is to get it back on the road by this spring, hopefully summer at the latest. I'd like to take it out and do some events with it. At the same time, I'm beginning to become a little bit afraid of it. Like, man, I put so much work into getting this paint right. The first time I get a scratch or a rock chip, I'm going to be beside myself. So I don't know. We'll see how things go. But I feel like I owe it to myself to take this thing out and show it off and enjoy it a little bit. And if shit happens, then shit happens. Anyway, that's it for now. Check back soon. I'll try to do more frequent updates. I apologize about that. But anyway, I've been working, and here it is. And thank you guys for your support and your words of encouragement. And I hope this inspires you for your projects. Oh, and one more thing. In case you didn't know it, my regular day job is I'm a musician, singer. And if you happen to be in Las Vegas on February 16th, I'm doing a show called Symphonic Rock Show. It's my production. I've got a rock band and a 22-piece orchestra that's co-fronted by my better half, Nina D, electric string player in there. And it's a great show if you like classic rock, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Queen, Electric Light Orchestra, and that kind of stuff. We'll be here in Las Vegas at the Smith Center on February 16th. You can check out that show. Otherwise, we'll see you next time. Bye.